Living Through the Ship podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany J. Harris, and I'm really excited that you're here. Special thanks to the Russell Nashville for letting us host our podcast here. I'm really excited to be back. And today we're going to do a little special episode. We're going to start doing check ins. So, this is our first check in episode. And I have my little handy dandy notebook. And for some reason, I can't remember what show that's from. So if someone knows, please put that in the comments because I'm blanking right now. But we're going to do a check in episode and we're going to just check in and see how you all are doing, let you all know what's going on with me right now. This is really the podcast that lets you know that you're not crazy. You're just going through a lot of shift. You're going through a lot of stuff, and that's okay. And going through a lot of stuff can be difficult. And what also makes it a lot easier is when you're around people who really understand what you're going through. Maybe they have a shared experience. And that's really the point of this podcast is that you're not really alone. And that's what we're really trying to let you know out here, that the human experience is basically, we're all going through it. We're really going through it, but we're gonna share, we're gonna talk about some things. We've got about 3 episodes that have come out so far, and the past episode was about career, and it featured a really good friend of mine, Crystal Marshall. I call her my other big sister, and she came on and she talked about career, and we talked a little bit about caregiving. So if you're wondering, this is supposed to be a caregiving podcast. It still is. And the thing is that a lot of us, we still have lives. So we still have to unfortunately work and we have to take care of our loved ones and things of that nature. So she really touched on career and really to kind of build the life that you want. And that was really what I wanted her to come on and talk about because I feel like several years ago, before my mom's diagnosis got progressively worse, which, as dementia is neurodegenerative and it will, break down. I noticed that I probably could have planned a lot more effectively, and I was stuck in a freeze mode. And I was talking to Drew, my producer, we were talking about basically this is like a recurring theme of, fear and not in freeze mode and not really making decisions. And for me, I know that with my brain, ADHD, which I am diagnosed, but I've always been in a freeze mode. And sure, that might be a traumatic response, but also I just don't want to make the wrong decisions because there's so many people who have a hand in my mom's care. So that's what we're really going to talk about today is just really checking in, trying to get our freeze mode. So right now, what's going on with me is that my mom is actually in the hospital. So yay me. And she got a UTI, and if you don't know anything about UTI, it's TMI. Basically, if someone has dementia and they get UTI, it can cause a huge backslide in their progression. And they can be really great one day, and then the next day it's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, completely different behavior. And that's what I kind of noticed. I call my mom whenever she's kind of getting a little feisty, I call it getting spicy. That's when I kinda noticed, okay, I think she's got a UTI. So she's in the hospital right now, and we're seeming like she might have backslid a little bit. And, if you're a dementia caregiver or if you're a caregiver, you know that you're kinda in this for the long haul. So you're kinda in it for the hiccups and the bumps and the rides along the way. And that's where we kinda are. I definitely have had my little cry moment, but I'm doing better. I used to say that I would cry every week, but now it's like every 2 weeks or something like that. I just feel like I gotta I don't know, watch a sad movie or something to feel something and then I can, just like have a release. But yeah, it's definitely, I'm gonna be completely honest and say sometimes it's not fun and it's not. But it made me think about this story. So this is what I'm gonna say is even when things are really, really hard, it's really easy for us to say, okay, I'm not going to move. And I know for me, when my mom first got diagnosed, I was very much in the frame of if it's not broke, don't fix it. Like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. She's fine. She can live her life because I really just wanted to stay off as hands off as possible because I knew as soon as I went full in, it would be really hard for me to pull back. And I noticed that as time went on, I wish that I maybe sat down with someone and went over that. So I'm going to give you some really great resources, but I'm going to give you the story. So when I was younger, my mom, we were all going to move into our first home. And she was she had bought a home, and if you know anything about housing now, it takes a long time for, like, houses to go into escrow and, close on the house to get the keys and all that stuff, and I didn't understand that. I'm 15. And my mom tells us, she says, "Hey, you and your sister need to start packing up and getting ready to move." And we said, "Okay, sounds good." She said, "We're gonna move in the next month or so." And we said, "Okay, great." So we started packing, and then we kinda didn't have the keys because we were gonna just progressively move out into, the house. And we noticed that that 1 month kinda got extended to 4 months, and over time, we slowly lost the ability to wanna start packing because we just thought, "This is never gonna happen." And, she said, "Okay, are you guys packing?" And we said, "Yeah, like, we'll pack," but, we just didn't really think about it because we really had kinda given up hope that we were ever gonna move. And then finally, my mom picks me up from tennis practice one day, and she says, "Hey, are you ready to move?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, just let me know when you get the keys." And she says, "I got the keys. Are you ready to move?" And I was not. I had not packed anything, I had not prepped anything, or I had prepped, like, a few things. And if you ever watched The Comfy Couch, basically, I was like Molly, and I was just throwing everything, just trying to move out. And me and my sister were just throwing everything, trying to move out of this two-bedroom apartment into this, townhouse in Chicago. And that was when, of course, we're very excited and we're so happy that we moved, but that was when I kinda thought back to this point of, yeah, I stopped preparing because I thought that it wasn't gonna get better. I didn't think that we were ever gonna get out of this situation. And I've heard a lot of people talk about, like, different situations in regards to worst case scenario, best case scenario, and I believe it was on Balanced Black Girl podcast, and then I think it's now on, like, it's called She's So Lucky. And she was talking about when you are writing down stuff, and she said, "I just write down best case scenario." So you're probably listening to this podcast and you're saying, "What the heck are you talking about?" Because this is the worst case scenario. And yeah, it definitely is. And I have been there, and your feelings are so valid. And I also challenge you to think that maybe, just maybe, I'm not gonna say, I hate it when people say, like, "Well, it could be worse. You could be homeless." People just say things just to be, like, motivational and toxically positive. And I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna just challenge you just to have, like, a different perspective. And I feel like, especially for me, when I was taking care of my mom and I was working and I was doing all those things, I just said, "Gosh, I really wish that I had maybe just thought into the future and thought, how is this gonna be better? How can I make this better? What can I do to really create the life that I want?" And I think I was so focused on, I want this one situation to work. I want this job to work. I want this relationship to work. I want everything to work the way it is. But also the variables have changed. So that no longer applies to me at this point. So that job does not work for you. I know you want to make it work. It doesn't work for you. I know you want this relationship to work for you. It doesn't work for you because every single thing has changed about the situation. So the equation is different and the answer is different. So that's really my challenge to you, is to say, write down, like, best case scenario. Yes, your loved one has dementia or they have degenerative, or maybe you're just, in the stage of caregiving and they don't have, anything like that. But you're just saying, gosh, this is really exhausting and it's a lot. But also, what would make this really awesome? Would it be, I want to go to Pilates? I mean, I do like solid core. I'm sorry, I do. Nonetheless, what is something in your life that you would say, wow, okay, this sucks, but I think we could have a really good life? And I remember one of my girlfriends saying, I think you and your mom can have a really great life. But it also takes a lot of effort and also mindset. And that's annoying when people are like, change your mindset. And it is, especially when you're like, I'm in the gutter. I am in the gutter. And I'll say for me right now, so yeah, my mom is living with me, and that is a lot. So right now, my mindset is, okay, right now, memory care is very expensive. Memory care is about like $8,000 for really good memory care. And if you've gone to a college or university, that's probably the most expensive college or university that they will ever go to in their entire life. So sometimes people are paying over $100,000 a year and they don't have long-term care insurance, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I realized that, okay, so you're not going to move her to a memory care because, yeah, she has a pension. She makes a nice amount of money, but she doesn't make $8,000 a month. And you can probably do in-home care, but what does in-home care look like for you all? Who does that mean is coming in to help you all and not feeling bad about it and not feeling bad for asking for help? I can't do all these things anymore. And I've realized that if I ask someone once or twice and they can't do it, I'm going to go to somebody else who can do it and someone who's specialized. So that's really kind of my challenge to you is just write down, or just start dreaming of, which sounds crazy, like, why would you dream and your mom has dementia? Like, I'm romanticizing this because that's the best thing that I could do at this point. And maybe it's Delulu. I don't know if that's what the kids call it, but it's delusional of me to say, okay, I'm going to write down best case scenario. We're going to move and someone's going to come in and I'm going to have this type of backyard and it's going to look like this and we've set things up. And that's one thing that I realized. So, in addition to that, how I realized that is because I'm very resourceful. I am probably very annoying. My family's like, "No, you're not." But I know people have been like, "You were annoying." I was talking to a family friend and she was saying, "You're annoying." To them, great save, but I am. I probably do a little bit too much, and it's probably because I don't wanna bother people, I don't wanna bug anyone, I wanna make sure that everything's right, but I've also realized that I don't feel bad for asking questions, and I don't feel bad for knowing certain things. If I don't know things, I will tell you that. But what I have realized is that there are people out here who wanna help you, and I said that in the first episode, and I'm gonna show you this, so if you're in Tennessee, you should definitely go get one. So this is the Age Well Middle Tennessee book, and you can go to agewelltn.org, and this is just a really awesome book. I'm actually gonna meet with elder care an elder care assistant tomorrow or a coordinator tomorrow. And I was praying and I said, God, I wish you could just give me information of what I need to do because I've been looking for a senior consultant. And then what do you know? I flipped to the back of the book and it was an elder care coach. So I'm going to meet with them tomorrow to figure out what's the best case scenario for us and how to make this work because as you know, and it's so annoying when people say, like, "You have to put your mask on first," and yeah, you kinda do, but sometimes that's unfeasible. Sometimes you're not gonna put your mask on first. Like, you're probably gonna say, "No, you can't catch up on sleep." But no, I'm probably not gonna, put my mask on first. I'm probably gonna put it on her first, and then I'm gonna put it on myself, and then I'm gonna run myself ragged, and then, 2 years catch up and say, "Okay, let's reassess." And unfortunately, sometimes when you're in an emergency situation and it makes the most sense to put your mask on first, which I definitely believe in that. And I think, yeah, but also that's unfeasible. So these are the moments where we start to plan and say, okay, if I am in this situation, what is my plan? So when people talk about, mental health, what's your mental health care plan? Or, if you've ever been in therapy and they talk about like, what's your safety plan? This is what I would challenge you to do. So if you're like, oh, I'm not taking care of my parents, or maybe I'm in the early stages of caregiving, this would be a great time to have like a safety plan. So this would be to write down all your friends who actually answer their phones and are not on do not disturb, the people that you know that you can definitely call, your therapist. I've got it planned where I've told, my therapist and my psychiatrist, like, when things get bad, I'm gonna need some benzos. And she was like, yep, sounds great. Like, that's great. Awesome. That's good to know. I think that's a really good idea. So really saying exactly what you need, especially in this moment. And then also, how are you doing? Honestly, that's really the point of this. I started this because I don't want anybody else to have to go through this. And I know that, they always say we can't help everyone. But I definitely feel like we can give people resources and resources are free. They're basically ample. Like a phone number is ample. The amount of people that you probably have in your phone and you don't call, you have no idea like who's you might know someone who knows someone who can help you with this situation. So this is the time for us to kind of get out of our, uncomfortable modes of asking for help, of not feeling bad for that, and saying it's okay to ask people for help. I've realized that I know a lot of people in my life who have pulled back because I think some people they don't know how to help me, or sometimes I go to a support group and I feel like, gosh, I'm really struggling. And then after I leave the support group, I say, wow, maybe I'm not doing so bad because I've really figured out how to advocate for myself and how to advocate for my mom and how to make things work. So that's definitely something that I would say. I want to know how you all are doing. You can email us at hello@livingthroughtheshift.com. We really just want it, or you can send us fan mail on Buzzsprout and, just comment, let us know how we can help. What do you want to hear? Do you want to hear more about career? Do you want to hear more about caregiving? I think this is unfortunately the point where I feel like I'm going through a lot of character development and I feel like I'm good. I am good on character development. I don't need to change. And I'm sure, God would probably say I highly disagree. But I know for me, I'm gonna be like, and thank you so much, Jesus. And I will politely say, sure, okay. But also, I know that I feel like I've changed enough and I've sacrificed enough, and that very may well be true. And also, I probably need to work through some things and ask for more help and put myself in a situation. So, yeah, this is like a gloom and doom situation sometimes, and this is also like, oh, we're working through it. Like we are actively working through it. So, if you're saying, well, what have you been through? Well, I was at my job and, my mom ran away for my birthday weekend, and that was really fun. And we had to catch her. We had to pick her up from the Greyhound station, and she ran away twice. And I had to call the fire department. And first I called the police, and then I said, no, don't come because you all are scary. So then I had the fire department come. And also, if the fire department comes, and you don't go anywhere, they still charge you. They will still send you a bill just for making an appearance. And I remember, I was with my partner at the time and he was giving me the information for us to get to, the psychiatric center. And then finally we got her to the psychiatric center and I just wept. And I felt so exhausted and so depleted because she had just been diagnosed 2 weeks ago. And what derailed her? A UTI, which is exactly where we are now. And as a result, in 2 weeks, I had to move her to a facility. I had to move her out of her apartment. And I got me and my really good friend and my partner at the time, and we moved everything into the storage unit like at, I don't know, 9:30, and the storage unit was about to close at 10. And we were like racing against the clock, and we were like, okay, we have to get everything on. And we did it. And then she moved. And after that, 2 weeks later, she lost her money from her pension. And then they're like, hey, you have to get a conservatorship. And I was her power of attorney, but the notary sign is the witness. So then I had to meet with an attorney. And who was I talking to today? My attorney, talking about, hey, what are the plans that we're going to make regards to her finances and things like that. So then after we got the conservatorship, great. Then something else happened. Then she declines. Then next thing you know, she's at a facility and she has to move in with me. So, those are just some of the things that I've kind of worked through. And after she ran away on my birthday weekend, I went back to work. Like everything was normal because I knew that nobody would understand. And I think that's the thing is, if you're in this situation and you're saying, oh, like nobody gets it, it's time to be around people who do get it. So if you're in a job and you're fighting, and I feel like I've never been married, but I've been in a relationship and I've been in friendships where I've tried so hard to make it work. And I said, why is this not working? I want this to work so bad, but I don't know why it's not working. And I'm not a therapist, so definitely going to process that. But for me personally, I've tried to fit myself in the mode and let me do this and let me try that. Let me finagle this. Let me move this over here. And it's not working. And you're different. You are a completely different person. You will probably be a completely different person. We have an episode coming out where my brother-in-law talks about I was becoming an angrier version of myself. And I agree. I'm way more cynical. I'm like Miranda on Sex and the City, and I couldn't be a school teacher because if, my student came to me and he said, "Oh, Steve's my best friend," and I would say, "Steve's gonna kick you at lunch," because sometimes I'm just cynical, and that's okay. But also, I can also be realist and say, "Yeah, that's just where you are right now." All that to say, though, is that you know just try and, like, have a better idea of what it is, and you can change yourself, but you can also change yourself for something that works for you. So, yeah, maybe that means you're finding a job or you're finding a relationship that aligns with you. Maybe you're finding a job that has unlimited PTO. Maybe you're finding a job that has different values in regards to caregivers. And there are companies out there, and I can post some resources on the Buzzsprout page. So you all have that. But there are things out there that can make it a lot easier for you. And if you can sit there where you're not in the sense of distress and you're not making situations such in a big hurry and in a big rush, I think it'll make things a lot easier. And especially for me, when, if I have to think about, I know in regards to, I don't like the idea of pre-funeral planning. It's driving me nuts. But also I know that I never really liked the idea of planning a funeral at the last minute, like everyone's like, I want to be, if you think of it like marriage, oh, we're going to have this cake and we're going to do this and we're going to do that versus I don't want to be on a scavenger hunt, and I can't get a clue. I've never been good at clue. I've never been good at puzzles. I've never been good at any of that. So those are just some of my things, and I know this is, I'm still trying to figure out this format, but I just wanna let you know, you are so not alone. You are not crazy. You're just going through a really tough time, and I've met people who have, you know, they figured it out, maybe after the fact, and also, I've met a lot of people who have lost themselves throughout this process, and they come out, and it's like this veil comes off and everyone who they knew is gone and everything that they once knew is no longer there and they're a completely different person. And I feel like this is the podcast to let you know you can figure things out even in the midst of it. And that's us sharing our experiences and saying like that's okay, that it is a lot harder, that the doctor might not understand. That's not really, unfortunately, their job, to understand things. When I was telling them saying, "Hey, I would really love for my mom to stay there a few days later." And he's saying, "Well, she's doing good. I treated her. She's doing pretty awesome." And I'm looking at it from, you're right. You're not a social worker. So you don't really have those skills to say, "Okay, here are the resources," or "I completely understand. Let's maybe consider a different approach." Um, that was that was kind of hard, but also I've been there and I get it. So, all that to say, you're doing a great job. If no one else is gonna tell you, I'm gonna tell you, you're doing a really great job, and there's no question about it. This is such a weird phase of life, so if you are taking care of someone, you're doing a good job, and if someone comes up to you and they're like, "Oh, like, God's gonna bless you," which people say that all the time, and I really hope that is true, and I'm sure it is, but I just wanna say, like, people see your work and you see your work, and that's the most important thing that matters. And if you listen to the podcast last week, Crystal really talked about transferable skills. And you're probably wondering, why am I learning all this stuff? And I'm in the same situation. What do I need to learn? What do I need to grasp from this? All of this counts. As my dad would say, it goes on the resume. It's good for the resume. That's what he says. And yeah, it's good for the resume and it's good for your life, and you might not understand why, but there will be something that you will gain from this that it will help you like down the road. So if you're like, "Oh, I'm going through this phase of caregiving and I can't get a job," or something like that, you probably are doing budgeting and maybe you need a stay at home financial job and you're doing finances right now. That's something that you can add to your resume. So, those are just some random things that I would say, but I really hope that this podcast helps people and that you all enjoy it and that you listen and you get the most out of it. And like I said, if you have any questions, you can always email us. We're going to have really awesome people coming on here. It's all about moving through the shift and living through the shift, but also giving you tangible answers and ways to really process that. So we're going to have some awesome like therapists come on and people to kind of help you talk about if you have to move your parents into a facility or into a community. And those are really tough things to process through. And that's really why we're here. We're living through the shift and we're happy you're here, but we're doing it. So if you have any questions, like I said, you can fan mail us, you can call us. Well, yeah, you can fan mail us. I think it text us. I know we're like, what's your phone number? It's 1-800. No, I'm kidding. But you can contact us, let us know, and definitely you can go to agewelltn.org. But this is a really great book. It talks a lot about, caregiving and books, and also it gives you as many resources as possible. So, I mean, even just flipping through like housing options, and it breaks it down based off county, personal support, and the support for your loved one is support for you. And remember that. So, whatever care they need, that is care that you need so that you can get a break. So, if they're coming in for 4 hours, that is care for you so that you can get a break so that you don't go insane. So, I hope this really helps. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next episode. Have a good one.